Hi everybody, thanks for joining us for Northern Ag TV. Well, it's been an interesting time in the cattle market. We've seen seasonal pressure develop affecting fed cattle, box beef, and the futures, but the on-the-ground implications of tighter supplies and ample supplies of feed are really supporting cash prices at our local auction markets. Futures, though, seeing lots of volatility. We've trended lower in September, though. Since the start of the month, feeder cattle down $11, live cattle $6 lower. It's not a real cause for concern, though. The cutout, as expected, has begun to trend lower, down $14 in just the past 4 days. That is usually what we see after Labor Day. The lower price is reducing packer demand for fed cattle, which has brought cash prices lower. We traded $1 to $2 lower on the live sales this week, $236 to $240. Dressed 5 to 6 weaker from $368 to $374. Cattle feeders still hold the leverage in the market, though, and that was evident on Friday with the latest cattle on feed report. Those numbers coming in showing supplies continuing to lag behind last year. Placements in the report being reported down 10% from a year ago. They were forecast to be 9 lower. Of course, placements down partly just due to a smaller calf crop, but also the border still being closed to Mexican cattle. Marketings were lower than expected, down 14% from 2024's level. Total inventory right where it was predicted, down 1%. Well, we wrapped up the summer video sales season last week with Northern Livestock Video's fall premiere. Prices not backing off at all. We continue to see them excel above last month, which was itself record high. If you compare back to where we were a year ago on this sale, we're talking steer calves that are bringing 50% more. Light 5-weight steers averaging $873 a head more than they did just a year ago. Steer calves in the sale 450 to 600 pounds, bringing $35 to $45 a hundredweight more than they did last month, and pretty good demand on the bred cattle as well. A lot of yearlings and calves have been pulled forward and sold early this year, so supplies are tighter, and as feed yards work to keep their lots full, they're definitely paying a premium. Looking at the yearling market at Torrington Livestock, a lot of yearlings coming off grass, and they're still fetching some pretty strong prices. 8-weight steers $362 to $375, your 9-weights $336 to $338. A lot of those big 10-weight steers, and they're bringing $327 up to $335. That's $3,500 a head on some of those real big steers. Also, it was another big week for sheep sales. At the Newell sheep yards, almost 7,000 head sold. Of course, it was the annual replacement ewe and feeder special. Ewe lambs bringing $207 to $248 a pound. Yearling ewes $350 to $410 a head. Feeder lambs mostly steady with last month. The 70-pounders $220 to $231. 80-pound lambs $214 to $235. And in the grain market, corn prices have managed to stay relatively steady so far in September, despite USDA and most analysts calling for a record large corn crop this year. Wheat prices not having as much luck, down probably 10 to 15 cents across most of the contracts since the start of September. We did get some bullish news this week, but it really didn't do much for the market. The Fed did decide to finally lower interest rates, which is supportive to exports. Speaking of exports, Taiwan signed a deal to purchase more U.S. wheat last week, and Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Indonesia all bought wheat as well, but the market just didn't seem to notice. Now, many countries did produce above average wheat crops this year, but the harvest pressure does appear to be waning. Next week, we'll get USDA's small grain summary reporting on the overall size of the U.S. wheat crop here in 2025. Thanks for joining us for today's report. I'm Coulter Brown. Have a good one.